If we consider net new oil demand in its entirety, then depletion actually counts for 82% of the story, assuming a 2% global GDP growth. The number of giant oil fields that are producing at the moment is in rapid decline, and we're becoming ever more reliant on smaller oil fields that are actually depleting at a higher rate. Supergiants typically decline at about 3.4% annually, while smaller fields decline at about 10.5%. So actually the decline rate that we are seeing currently should probably accelerate as we become more reliant on smaller oil fields. If we consider over the last 2 years, the 22 largest oil fields found, 83% were offshore. Now, if we consider that offshore fields decline at probably twice the rate of onshore giant oil fields, we're looking at a depletion curve that is dipping even further down. And if we then look at how many oil fields are found deep offshore, probably about 95% of those offshore are actually deep offshore. And then we're into decline rates of between 13 and 22%. Of course, this means greater depletion equals more drilling. More drilling equals a greater revenue for offshore engineers and rig owners. If we consider the rig count should be increasing by about 50% over the next 2 years. What that does is it opens up a huge growth opportunity for oil services and oil engineers. In fact, their part of the market will increase by about 125% over the next 2 years. One of the most pressing issues that faces a lot of rig fleet owners is the need to modernise, particularly the Americans. The Americans have 67% of their fleet over 25 years old. And as we're now drilling to depths of over 2.7 kilometres, they need to be able to carry more and more drill strings on their decks. They also, post-Macondo, are required to carry 2 blowout preventers. Now, blowout preventers weigh the same sort of weight as roughly 100 elephants. Now, before Macondo, you just had to have the blowout preventer stationed on the seabed. Now you have to carry an extra one, a spare one, on your deck. Obviously, with the increased number of drill strings and the need to carry this extra blowout preventer, or these extra 100 elephants, you actually need a much bigger drilling deck. Yes, there are new rigs that are entering into the market over the next few years. But if we look at the supply-demand dynamics, we're seeing that for this year, we're fully booked out. For next year, we're just about fully booked out. For 2014, we're looking very, very tight. And then we start getting into a scenario where we need extra rigs for Angola, probably 30 need to be drilling down there. And if we include the build-out in Brazil that is going to be delayed, we've probably got a need for another 27 to 28 rigs that will be being demanded from the international market that should make it extra tight. So we're seeing very, very strong day rates, we believe, till probably 2015, 2016 at the least. Well, the valuation of these ultra-deepwater rigs is very attractive at the moment. I mean, if we assume a $550,000 a day rate, and then we think, okay, it's going to be out of the market for about 7% of that time, which is fairly typical, then we're looking at revenue of about $187 million a year. If we then subtract the cost, typically it costs you about $175,000 a day to run one of these things, and then we assume that is running for every day, even when the rig is actually out of commission or not producing, then that gives you a cost of about $64 million. That gives you a total EBITDA of about $123 million a year. Now, considering that these rigs cost you maybe $650 million to buy, you're paying your rig off in little over five years. If we up that rate to about $650,000 a day, that payoff comes down to about 4.1 years. I know if I could get a lodger into a house and could pay my mortgage off in 4 years, I'd be very happy. But these companies are actually trading at about between 0.6 and 0.8 times that particular valuation.